music.
What is this one? No, that one's a little too heavy. We'll do this one. So the president of, and I wasn't able to re-edit the name of this room with plus El Salvador on the end because this room was already scheduled like from yesterday. So anyway, the president of El Salvador was just speaking live, and we had a room just here in Clubhouse right before this one that literally just ended, where he was speaking, and the timing could not have worked out better because his talk and conversation ended exactly as this room was scheduled to start. So what a lovely coincidence that was. And the title of the Clubhouse room that I made was El Salvador President Speaking About Bitcoin Live. And it got up to about 350 people. And he was talking about what's going to happen with Bitcoin in El Salvador, which is one of the big questions in the Bitcoin world, if not the biggest question in the Bitcoin world at the moment. And he shared some real interesting bombs that were absolute breaking news. First and foremost, anyone can come and get a permanent residence in the country of El Salvador if they bring 3 Bitcoin, which is today worth about $100,000. So, which is a very reasonable cost if looking on the planet at the cost of acquiring permanent residences in places. That's not so bad. Not that El Salvador's high on the list of places that people seek permanent residence. But the other really interesting points that he made was, because it is going to be a actual legal tender, it's required that everybody accept it, just as it's required for Americans to accept dollars. You don't have a choice. However, they understand that that's going to be a burden to some people, and some people aren't going to like that, and it's very volatile, and etc. So they're creating a $150 million fund. They call it a trust fund, so that in the example he gave multiple times, that if a merchant who's selling fish or flowers don't want to be holding Bitcoin, they of course can accept US dollars. The country uses US dollars. They will continue to use US dollars. 95% of transactions, 99.9% of transactions in El Salvador will still be done in US dollars. For those very, 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 very few transactions that happen in Bitcoin, the vendor must accept the Bitcoin transaction. And if they don't want to hold the Bitcoin, they can convert the transaction immediately or as quickly as technically possible from Bitcoin into US dollars at the price of the goods that they sold. So effectively, it makes no difference to them as a vendor, although it might take some time for that conversion to happen from Bitcoin into the US dollars that they normally would have got anyways. Those to me were the 2 biggest newses of the event. Also, well, no, there was one other really big one. The government is developing its own crypto wallet and Bitcoin wallet, and they said they are doing that in partnership with Stripe. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting, because at the very beginning of the call, he says he's doing something with Jack Dorsey, and Jack Dorsey's company is called Square. And Square does have crypto wallets, and Stripe is a very big fintech company that doesn't have crypto wallets. So it's very possible he misspoke and he meant that they're doing this partnership with Square and not Stripe.
Just got the wrong name.
That's funny.
Okay.
I don't blame him, because I've made that mistake myself from time to time, because the names are similar. They're both incredibly huge fintech companies. Jack Dorsey's fintech company does have a wallet that does accept Bitcoin. The company's called Square. And he started the conversation by saying, yeah, I'm going to break a lot of news here. Actually, we're working together with Jack Dorsey, to do something. And then he went on to talk more. And then later he says, yes, we're making a government wallet to handle these Bitcoin things. But also, the people of El Salvador they are not required to use the government wallet. They can use any wallet they damn well want. That's not a problem at all.
China, Nicholas is in the audience.
Great.
In India also there is government.
He's on stage.
It's on digital currency.
Right.
But one point, Tyler, he also mentioned that he will allow any wallet to be used, not just a government one. Yeah, he said that. Yeah,
I just said that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what got very curious is he said, and again we think he misspoke. is he says, yeah, we're doing this government wallet. It'll be a partnership with Stripe. Stripe doesn't do crypto wallets.
Strike with a K.
Oh,
That's Jack
Strike with
Mallers'
a
company.
K. You're right, Nicholas. Sorry. I think you're right about that. There you go. You solved the riddle.
Strike was the company that announced it, right? I saw that
That's right.
video where so I don't know what this company Strike does. I never heard of it, but it can easily
it was
The
Strike
Lightning
all along.
Payments Network.
Yes. That's right. Strike with a K, not Stripe with a P.
See, Nicholas, you're so global.
Yeah, the Central American accent threw me off for a bit. But
would have been strange if it would have gotten that name wrong. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's a very lesser known. It's not either one of the big.
Tyler,
yes.
Based on what I've heard, it sounds pretty reasonable. Essentially, Bitcoin will be treated like any other foreign currency. I mean, here in Tanzania, you can open multi-currency accounts. So in Kenya, in any countries, I'm sure you can open multiple accounts in a bank, right? So my big question here is an opportunity now, if all this is real, for someone to buy a bank in El Salvador or for a neobank to rise up in El Salvador that handles this for businesses, because it's going to be quite painful for those who don't understand how to do it. So I can imagine there might be some scenes, something having behind the scenes around banks where maybe one of these cryptocurrencies will buy them, or there'll be a new neobank funded that will help handle this for El Salvador, because that would be super smart, right?
Yeah. I'm checking. It's funny. The mainstream media still is not reporting any of this, as far as I can see.
Mbawana, this is LS. The president said that the central bank was behind it. That means that the legislation will come down for any kind of local banks to be under that umbrella. So if that vote passes through, you're correct. Anyone can, with a banking license can be able to transport and do that kind of functionality. Because once a central bank does it in any country, it becomes the law of the land. And so the commercial banks...
That's
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will they be ready, those banks? Will those banks be ready is my point, right? I don't think many of them will be ready.
You're right. No, but that's why he said he wants people to come to the country. I mean, yeah, they won't be ready for the influx. I mean, but that's why he's looking to have more people, go to that country. But yeah, I mean, I'm laughing because, yeah, he'll have more demand than supply.
That's why my conclusion is someone's going to come in and help it's going to be really interesting to watch what actors show up to help the transition. It's not just magically happens overnight. The decision comes down, the banks have to get ready, as you mentioned, and then there's going to be need a little support for the businesses to accept. But if it happens quite seamlessly, the world will be watching and other countries will follow, right?
Yeah, he said that as well. He says there was a few really choice quotes that he made, not in a technical sense, but more in speaking his mind kind of a sense. And I want to pull those up. It'll take me 2 seconds. And I tweeted them from the Twitter account, the Tech News Twitter account, where he said things to the effect of this is the future and we want to be part of it, and this is not about El Salvador. Now is not just a country; it's kind of a movement into the future. He was saying things like that. He said, "Let me get the quote."
One of the things that struck me was how directly he spoke to, the speculation that unsavory types would use their platform to buy arms and guns. And he said, well, right now people are buying guns in US dollars, so I really liked the conviction with which he spoke about, this new policy. And I mean, he seems to really have done his homework and not just relied on aides.
But back to the point that somebody made, he did say that he thinks his neighboring countries will follow. No doubt.
That's an interesting part.
That's a super interesting part. Yeah.
Nicaragua. I'm Nicaraguan. Nicaragua is going to be in between Costa Rica, right? So you have El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Now,
Panama.
Nicaragua is the outlier because Costa Rica and El Salvador will be more aligned, and so it'll be very interesting to see how that economy, because that economy really travels between it's kind of borderless to a certain degree, right? Those people go in and out constantly. And so it'll be interesting to see how that manifests with the digital currency.
Yeah, and on the Twitter point, Tyler, I think this is a great example. I love the one that you've written. You can sell fish in the market. You can use your own apps, not the government wallet. I mean, it's just super clear.
Yeah, I liked that was a big question people had in the room. Yeah, just to recap, he says.
Tyler, if I might say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was reading through some posts, and Brock, who you guys had on the show a couple of weeks ago, had posted out that Paraguay has already announced that it's considering the project. That was one interesting thing. And then whilst I was thinking on this, his quote, what he said around the guns and the drugs, etc., implying the drugs, etc. I mean, nothing stops the individuals and the cartels and the organizations that are already using the U.S. dollars from continuing from using whatever the banking systems or whatnot that they're using currently. The addition of Bitcoin and blockchain to allow the population that he was hinting at, giving the fisherman example or the shops example, that's just an addition, in my humble opinion. And my opinion has changed, to be honest, in the little discussion that we had offline on the back channels about how this is really stupid, has gone from looking at it whilst he was speaking, and I actually quite liked that speech, unprepared discussion that he gave, and the way that he addressed some of those points. I thought it was a fantastic work, and I thought some of the answers that he put together were really amazing, and I think my opinion has really changed now. I think he's done a great job, and what he's looking at doing is actually the true mission of helping out the people. And some of the individuals that were on stage, Pomp was up there. I don't know if Brock was up there.
I didn't see
Some
Brock.
of these guys have been going. So some of these guys have been going down there. I mean, I know Brock speaks at the LATAM Bitcoin conference as a keynote speaker for, I think, 7 years now. And sometimes we as individuals who are not as informed as the guys that have been going down there for year on year since, I mean, these people know the ins and outs of the system. I mean, contempt prior to investigation, in my humble opinion, is probably the biggest disease that anyone can fall prey to. So sometimes I just think we should keep an open mind in discovering these topics. That's all.
I agree, Faraz. Faraz, can I ask you a question, just a little bit on this, because I'm
sure, Cal.
Early in the learning of this. Do you see in all your work in this kind of stuff, and I know you're very informed and stuff. Have you any of the big banks, the big investment banks, have connections with El Salvador, and how they behind the scenes are collaborating, helping, whatever? I know this is not going to be very public by these banks right now. The Goldmans, the JP Morgans, any of those other guys. Just curious if you have come across anyone, but most of these guys are probably going to try and stay away from any public connection.
I mean, maybe we just need to get it in perspective though first.
Well, can I just ask Faraz that question, and then if not, we'll move forward,
without getting too direct, Cal, I mean, it's a known fact that Goldman has a black book on every country, right? So
okay.
I mean,
yeah,
is that clear enough?
Yeah. No, that's
into too much detail.
Fair. Okay, we'll move on. That's right? Okay. It's good.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what you mean by black book. What do you mean by a black book?
We can take it offline whenever you want, brother.
Tyler, so I just saw the law has been passed in El Salvador. 62 out of 84 votes.
There you go.
He controls both. He controls that party, so it was going to go through for sure.
Yes, Nicholas, you can share your thoughts now.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of put it in perspective a little bit. I thought it's always great news to see people adopting new technologies, but he made the point that people will not, really take much. They'll say it's a small country and everything else, but I do think we have to realize it's a landmass the size of New Jersey. There's 8 million people. They've only got broadband penetration on 30% of the population, 2 million people working, and a GDP per capita of less than $9,000. So when you look at it in context of, say, Coinbase, which has got 50 million accounts, you need to say, okay, what is this doing, and is this doing something good for the people of El Salvador? And the thing that worried me was that he said that the government was going to set up a trust fund that may make money, may not make money, and was going to act really. And someone chimed in, have you heard about market makers, Mr. President? And he said yes. But it does seem very odd, and I wouldn't be very happy if my government was going to go into the Bitcoin stabilization business, because at $60,000 going to $30,000, you could wreck a country quite quickly, which has such a small GDP. They only have a real GDP of $27 billion, which is the size of a relatively small market cap S&P 500 company. So I think one has to be a little bit careful not to get over carried away with the narrative here, which is, yes, this is interesting, but a woman selling apples in the market who is going to take Bitcoin is a little bit fanciful, especially given that broadband adoption is so low and internet connectivity is so low. So I think that the interesting thing is that it's becoming legal tender in a sovereign nation, but one has to look at it in context.
On
Thank
that
you,
note,
Nicholas.
Nicholas. Oh, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Sorry, can I say something? Hi, I'm Valentina. I've actually lived in El Salvador, and Nicholas, just to your point, just looking at Twitter, a lot of the local Salvadorian journalists were very frustrated by the Twitter event that just happened, because the mic was not given to any Salvadorian citizen, much less the journalists. The only people that were speaking on stage were the politicians. And so I just want to really quickly say thank you for the points that you made, because you are 110% right. The people there are extremely, extremely poor, very little internet connectivity, much less smartphones or whatever's needed. It's really struggling. And I just want to remind people that don't know that I think in 2001, El Salvador went from the local colon to the US dollar, and it devastated the people. It absolutely devastated the people, because the remittances just weren't worth as much anymore. So it actually increased poverty, this shift to the US dollar. So I just don't want to be a downer. I mean, I'm all about Bitcoin as well, but I also know El Salvador pretty much, like, better than I'm sure 99% of people in this room. And I am honestly very worried. And I also know that a lot of the local people, aside from the Bukele followers, especially the local journalists, they're very worried about this, because it's really being done, like you mentioned, he controlled the Congress, so it's really being done in a very forceful way, with very little explanation to the people, the local people, the citizens,
Yeah,
especially
I
with the
think
trust
Oh,
fund.
he is not
Valentina,
doing
may
this
I
to
ask a
serve his
question?
people for sure. He's not
oh.
doing this to serve his people. He's the criminal, I think.
Well,
Valentina, may
I
I
would
ask a
add one
question?
thing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is LS. I would just add one thing to that data point, just to go on Nicholas' point. And I'm going to throw a controversy in here. I think the president is signaling, and this is just my opinion. I've been in this Bitcoin space since 2010, but for the technology, I think he's signaling something to China, who's rolling out their own coin. Because when you talk about, and I think it was Nicholas and someone else that says, what happens in the region? If one domino falls, all of them falls. And if you go macro versus, micro, he's trying to signal. This is a signaling, in my opinion. He's signaling to the rest of the world, we're looking to do this. It's not about Bitcoin. It's about the technology.
LS,
Oh,
can I just, before we get into that, I just want to make sure my instincts are not wrong here. Valentina, did you have more to say? You can jump in anytime because you know the place, you've been there. Did you want to finish your statement, or you had done that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that it's really difficult. I know that the Bitcoin community is celebrating this move, and I hear your enthusiasm in wanting to go to El Salvador and buy land. I'll just tell you that already that land is so expensive for the locals. Local people can't buy land there. Okay, so great. Go buy your beautiful surf little beach. I think that we can all support that. definitely at the expense of the well-being of the local people. Just know that clearly. And another thing with Bukele that you have to know is that just as he's announcing Bitcoin, he's also kicking out an international corruption court, which was investigating his government into very shady COVID corruption, which is happening all over Latin America. Like all these Latin American governments are being investigated for COVID-related corruption. Of course, we expected this to happen, right? So as we celebrate things as a community, as a Bitcoin community, I would just ask people to take a step back, as Nicholas did, and thank you for doing that observation, and look at things in a much deeper way and know that I don't think that we're in a point to celebrate what's happening in El Salvador right now, because I know that maybe in the short term, if we wanted to do something, if he really wanted to do something for the people, he would really tackle corruption in the way that he had promised during the campaign. But
Sure.
that's just me.
Thank
If
you.
I
Does
might,
anyone
if
have
I'm
any? Sorry, I don't know who I'm interrupting. Just really quick, does anyone have any other insight regarding what the impetus is for this move and who will benefit from it?
Can
so
I make a comment?
if I can just ask a question of Valentina and Nicholas.
Go ahead, Faraz.
So that Valentina, thank you very much. And this is why I keep saying that one should really have an open mind, regardless of whether you're a Bitcoiner or regardless of whether you support CBDCs. And it's great to have individuals like you here who can truly teach us. And my question to you, if you allow me, would be, do you think if, for example, this went through the way that he's supporting it and the way that, the Bitcoin evangelist community is supporting it, where foreign direct investment vis-a-vis, let's say, Bitcoin mining were to come in, and the major, let's say, the Chinese Bitcoiners were to come in, and major mining facilities were to come in, and major internet companies were to come in, Huawei, let's say, was to come in, or other internet services were to come in, maybe that foreign direct investment could provide the internet connections. Maybe it could support the lower end of the community. Maybe it could support the poverty of the community. Maybe by bringing those Bitcoin billionaires or millionaires, etc., into the community, it might actually uplift the community the way Puerto Rico got a little bit of an uplift. And I don't mean to compare Puerto Rico to El Salvador, because it's definitely not comparable in any way, shape, or form, especially the amount of corruption and the amount of the amount of poverty that exists in El Salvador and how the people are treated in El Salvador. But if we could get a little more color on that, I'd greatly appreciate it for a personal perspective of learning. Thank you very
And
much. I'm done.
that was my whole
Oh, hang
point,
on,
Faraz.
Valentina and Nicholas. Could you just Alice, 1 second? I'm just trying to get the discussion on the both sides. So, Valentina, did you want to say something,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
Nicholas
I
to
would just
Faraz?
say, I would just say that, listen, like El Salvador is a country where people make anywhere between $5 a day to $20 a day. $20 a day, you're making really good money. And you go there and already, for example, the best job that a college graduate can get in El Salvador is to work at a call center, to learn English and go work at a call center and answer the phones for Delta, for America, for all the US and European companies. They're there and they're making $20 a day. If you're to tell me that with this project, the first thing that needs to happen in El Salvador is, number one, wages need to go up, and I mean really up. But then our wage, like the price of land, for example, in the beach right now, when I moved there in 2016, you could get a nice piece of land in the beach for like $8,000, and that was already expensive. Today, that piece of land is at like $40,000, $50,000. And now with all the Bitcoin invasion, that land is just going to skyrocket. My first question would be like, can wages keep up with the inflation that's surely coming with all this investment? That's number one. Number two, you have a population that's extremely poor. I mean, extremely poor and illiterate, frankly, like with all due respect, right? It's just the level of the poverty. Then you have a dynamic with the gangs, right? How are you going to deal, how are the gangs going to be involved in this situation? MS-13 for sure is going to get involved in Bitcoin if they're not already. So there's just a lot of very difficult things that, listen, El Salvador right now is a little playground. It's a tiny country, like you said, it's the size of New Jersey, and it's Bukele and his team's playground. It's their little playground, and they control everything.
Faraz and Valentin. Oh, sorry. I
Can
can
I
give you
just
some information on the
sorry?
recent report.
Heyman, just
Sorry.
a second.
Yep.
Heyman, brother, just a second. Nicholas, I think, wanted to go. If we could finish that side, and then, brother, I think Cal wanted to go.
I agree with Valentina. I think that one always needs to examine the narratives that are coming about in the same way that you saw Francis Suarez get swept up with the mayor of Miami got swept up in a bromance with Saylor and the rest of the the Bitcoin bros. I think in reality we have to be honest with ourselves and say that is the president doing himself a favor by poking the US in the eye when they are recipients of a lot of foreign aid, and that's supporting the country to the tune of I think something like 600 odd million a year, and they're running a $500 million deficit. They also have a small inflation rate at 1%, so they're not suffering. One of the Bitcoin guys on the call, said, "Oh, have you, do you want to move away from the dollar because of inflation? We Bitcoiners see inflation coming," and I think that is not something that affects a country like El Salvador because they need expansion of the money supply. They need wealth creation. They don't need hard money that that restricts their growth. They need credit. They need opportunity that comes through a banking system. So the idea that someone asked a question about a Goldman or a JP Morgan. A Goldman and JP Morgan don't give two shits about a country like El Salvador because there's no money to be made. If the GDP per capita is $9,000, even Facebook doesn't, give a shit about them, right? Because you need people, that's why there isn't internet provision. There isn't any of this because they don't spend any money, and the internet is built on advertising and freemium services. And, if you're a leader of a country, you would want to think that you want to bring more stability and more growth. And I'm not sure that Bitcoin brings more stability or more growth unless you believe that people are going to go down there and build a new world. But if you can go to Puerto Rico and get 0% tax, that's what people really want in the Bitcoin community, to shelter their gains and to, and I'm sure that everyone's got good intentions too. But in reality, I think that we need to not believe that Bitcoin's going to be a panacea for people, contributing less than $9,000 a year to the GDP of a country. They're going to need much more infrastructure support before they can use it. And even if you're thinking about mining, which they talked about, and they do have geothermal power, they don't have the ability to connect. So, it's like, yeah, okay, great, you've got cheap energy, that's good. But if you don't have a connectivity and you don't have a population that can utilize the technology, then you're probably, not going to, it's not going to help a lot. It's a good narrative story. It's a good narrative for Bitcoin, who's in a
Thank you,
dip.
Nicholas, I'll just say one last sentence and then I'll end because this argument could go on for hours and I don't want to hog the stage. I'll say one last sentence and then I'll finish and then the whole stage can talk. Everything that we've talked about, all we ever talk about is problems, and that's fine. Of course, there's 100,000 problems, and what we've all discussed there, Nicholas, and you've clearly pointed out one, and you could probably point out a million more, and there's no solution. There's no solution. Goldman doesn't give a crap, you said it. JP Morgan doesn't give a crap, you said it. Facebook doesn't give a crap, you said it. No other company gives a crap, you said it. If there's a 0.5% chance or a 0.01% chance that someone might give a crap, is it worth taking that chance? I'll leave that for food for thought for the entire community of tech news, and I'll stop now. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Faraz, I would like to wing in here. I mean, we invest, we do impact investing. We are invested in El Salvador, just for the sake of the understanding. Actually, my wife and my kids are all Latinos. We speak Spanish at home. I lived 10 years of my life in Latin America. We've invested probably in most of the Latin American countries. So in that stage, and we focus specifically on, as you actually said, on the vulnerable populations, Valentina. So we are focusing on, economic inclusion, poverty uplift. We're focusing on
Florian, you're an
resilience.
outlier. You're an outlier. Your ward was clearly defined as an outlier.
Yeah,
There's not many
absolutely.
like you.
And
For
I'm
us, let the discussion move on. It's all good. Yeah,
so
we just let get people their
so
opinions and their perspectives and the things that they're doing.
yeah, but
And by the way, I know there are a lot of new
Carl,
people on the stage here. One second, I just want to give a quick. This stage is open for everyone to just jump in. But the only way that works is that we just let people finish their point of view as much as we can. And then occasionally we have to get both sides on the table just to get the discussion going and understanding all perspectives. And then the other rule here is that, sometimes men talk over each other and women sometimes find it hard to get in there. Not all women, but some do. And so we kind of hold back and make sure that we get the voice there. Okay. So that's how this stage works. And we have a wonderful discussion. I know there's a lot of new people today and quite passionate perspectives that are emerging. So yeah, go ahead, everyone. Sorry, Florian, finish your
yeah,
point. And then for us, get in there. I'm just saying, let him finish his point if that's okay. Thank you.
thank you, Cal. And Valentina, I would love actually to take that further because we're talking about digital inclusion. And I have some hope. I don't know whether it works. And I think a little bit like Faraz was saying, maybe there's hope. Maybe it's not just the Bitcoin is coming and taking over and the land price is exploding, but maybe there's something to be done. Maybe there's a
Mm-hmm.
different way as governments, smaller
Mm-hmm.
governments are looking into. Again, I'm not discussing the poverty. I'm not discussing the vulnerability. I'm not discussing the corruption of the governments. That's all there, and it's in many, many countries. But maybe there's something about it. Maybe it's at this
Thank you,
stage a
Florian.
little
Can
bit
I
of a
just
split
say,
thinking. Yeah.
can I just end, Cal, quickly by saying that I did not come here to attack tonight's move on El Salvador. I think it's promising. What I hope is that we actually enter in. What bothered me was listening to some people on the stage literally salivating about the land that they can't wait to go buy in El Salvador. You know what I mean? There we start sending the wrong feeling because it's like, well, you know what that means. When a lot of foreigners come and buy the land, then it skyrockets. If we can please work in a intentional and in a wholehearted way. I mean, I don't have a lot of hope with the government, Salvadoran government, but that's another conversation. But as a community, and really try to do the right thing for the right reasons, then I have the hope. That's why when Faraz said, if this happened, this happened, my first question was like, well, can that actually raise the wages? Because that's the first thing that needs to happen. How do you raise the wages? So, yeah, we can continue the conversation. I have hope as long as it's done for the right reasons. But please, let's not just, get news that X third world country, this is happening. And then immediately your impulse is, oh, I want to go and buy land and this and that. Like, think about first the local dynamics and then
Valentina,
start
you
to
you have
integrate.
thank you so much for your perspective because and you come and stay in the discussion. This I know you're new to this room. It's a lot of fun. We discuss the issue, very respectful to each other, and we listen to everyone. And it's a wonderful community. So
It's
welcome to the community and the stage.
an important subtle
And
point.
and, and Valentin. Oh,
Hold on one sec, LS. I just want to need to recap because the room's more than doubled since, and they have no context of what we are discussing. The president of El Salvador. We started this room as we always do about 36 minutes ago, and we meet twice a day. You click on the title of the room to see our schedule. We started 36 minutes ago, which the hour before that, there was a live conversation with the president of El Salvador on the topic of their adoption of Bitcoin, where he was dropping news bombs that he's never revealed before. And the essence of that conversation is just to recap for you. And by the way, the mainstream media still has not reported what he covered because they take a few hours to digest the news he was creating in real time. And we're already analyzing it as we do in this room each day. But there's no physical headline to talk about. We're just going off of what we heard out of his mouth. And with some of the things he said, I tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, and you can see those tweets and like and retweet them. And I'll just recap some of my favorite things that he said. Well, he started off by saying, we have to accept the future of humanity. This will be a good example. He also said, we are no longer, El Salvador is no longer a country. We are the future, was one of his other comments he made. He's, and how people, into the practical many people want to know how is this actually going to work in practice. And by the way, the call ended 36 minutes ago because the government was actually on the floor of the government doing the vote in real time. So the call ended precisely when this room opened 36 minutes ago. We got an update about 20 minutes ago that it passed. They did accept Bitcoin as a new currency. And what that means is, and as he made very clear, it will be a requirement for every business in all of El Salvador to accept this new currency of Bitcoins for anything that they sell. Now, obviously, that requires a wallet. So he did say, yes, we are building a government wallet in a partnership with a company called Strike with a K, not to be confused with Stripe with a P, as I did. And the government wallet will not be mandatory. Anyone can use any Bitcoin or crypto wallet they want. And then there's another interesting element, which is, of course, this obviously will be an incredibly small percentage of transactions, at least in the short term. And in those transactions, when a tiny fruit seller, with a little wooden cart with a donkey is selling, bananas, might not want, even though they are required to accept Bitcoin in that transaction, they might not want to hold the Bitcoin because of how volatile they are. They might have preferred that to accept dollars, and they didn't have the choice. The buyer is insisting on paying with Bitcoin. The seller is, because it's a legal currency now, is required by the law to accept those Bitcoins. However, they are creating, and this is very interesting, $150 million, what he called trust fund, so that banana seller can transfer or convert that newly received Bitcoin into US dollars essentially immediately, although naturally there's going to be some amount of time required to do that, but that the amount that they receive will be the same amount in US dollars that they would have got anyways from that buyer, so that there isn't really any downside for the seller to accept the Bitcoin payment. So that's a really interesting aspect as well. You can see the tweets for yourself from the Tech News Twitter account where I was tweeting these. And that hopefully catches everybody up to speed. It is speaks to how fast the news is moving these days, and it highlights the importance of rooms like this that we can already be digesting and metabolizing and bringing in people from Central America and people like Florian and Valentina. That's this. What a beautiful example yet again of how useful this type of thing.
And Tyler, I many times I cut off LS, and I want to LS.
Sorry, LS.
Go ahead. I think you want to bring in the. Well, no, it was me. I just wanted to get
I'm
apologizing
Tyler, on your behalf,
Tyler,
Cal.
Go ahead.
No, Tyler, it's cool. It's cool. Hey,
Okay,
guys.
thanks.
I mean,
Thank you
Cal, Tyler, you're my brothers from another mother. So look, Valentina, I just want to say something to you and to Nicholas' point and for Oz. They said a couple of data points. And from you, I grew up extremely hard, okay? So you talk about poverty, I don't even want to talk. I might cry on this damn stage. And I still haven't got my 40 acres and a mule. And I'm black, African-American, hood, all this, everything. So the road to Stanford and everything I'm doing was paved with blood, pain, tears, and it still is. So when
you're going to make me cry, LS.
Okay, hold on, Tyler. No, because when you get this, because I'm older than 42. Okay, I'm older than 42. I'm not 22.
All right.
I'm older than 42. And so when you do this, Valentin, you're right. We need to check everyone. I'm in AI, AGI, whatever. We always need to check everyone. So I appreciate you and I understand it because, someone's trying to come and say, buy your land from your people and take over it. I get you. And I get it more than I am. And Florine knows this, Florin, because we've been, there's a room he's doing under tech, walking and having a beer. Tech Coast News. Yeah, we're talking about impact and digital exclusivity for around the world and how we can change the world, bringing everyone together, which is what Tech News does. And Cal, we bring it together to do the resources so we begin to connect with each other. Instead of talking to each other or arguing, we connect with each other. We start building this, We start building the system to change this world. So the ones who and I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2010. Blockchain, already proven, government came, but I don't own the currency. I always was in the tech, wrote 3 books about it. It's okay, it's all public. But my point being is that when I wrote my third book, Bitcoin was $800 and $80 a coin, 2017. It's on Amazon. And I said it would go up. I said it's the future. Now Elon Musk and everyone else is in the game and they're saying what it will or will not do as a currency. It was the technology. It was always the technology. And if we can endanger our people, everyone, to be educated, to get knowledge, to understand, to build for themselves, we can actually change this damn world, and we don't have to bomb each other every other day. That's just my opinion.
I want to clarify one point, which is isn't yet clear that foreigners will be able. I don't know what the legalities of land purchase is in El Salvador at the moment, and
They've announced it.
they did. What's the latest?
Sorry, it's 3 bitcoins and you'll get permanent residency.
Yeah, but that's totally different from them buying land. Getting residency is just a status in your passport.
But Tyler,
Including
the
You need that
money.
to
fees.
buy
Tyler,
land.
It
but
includes
Tyler,
it.
think about it. If you're there,
Yeah.
if you're there, think about. She just told you, like, look at the minimum wage or what the economy is.
Yes.
It's a joke. It may cost you 1 Bitcoin to buy an island.
Yeah, but my point is I have permanent residency in Thailand. I cannot buy land in Thailand. There's lots of countries that grant permanent
In El
residency that don't
Salvador,
grant
you
land
can,
ownership.
Tyler. No. You need to be a resident to buy land in El Salvador.
But being a permanent resident doesn't give you necessarily the right to own land. Same there in Thailand. Permanent
It
Valentina,
residents
I
does.
think
cannot
what
own land in
he's
Thailand.
yeah, Valentina, I think what he's asking is it freehold land or is it a
Leasehold.
leasehold?
No, it's freehold land. It's yours. If
So
you
he's
become a
selling his
resident,
country
it's
then.
yours.
Exactly.
So
Well,
he's selling his
Exactly.
country.
not necessarily. Like I said, let me be crystal clear. I live in Thailand. As a permanent resident, I cannot buy land in Thailand.
No, Valentino say you can. Valentina
Okay,
say
I
just
just
said you
want to make
can.
sure we're perfectly
Yeah.
clear about it, because
Yeah.
is that a new thing that, or as part of this new thing that they just voted on 37 minutes ago, or was that always the case that all residents can buy land and own land?
Just was announced in the I tweeted to you. It's basically, it says it was announced during the Twitter talk. It's an article from U Today. I don't know what that magazine is.
Can
The
we hear
price
Valentina,
of the
please?
Bitcoin.
Ultimately, it's about
Yeah.
tax. Let's face it. This is
Valentina's
And
trying to
he
speak. Can
about
we hear her?
attracting
Valentina,
tax
go ahead.
residents.
No, I was just going to say that even prior to the announcement that it costs 3 Bitcoin to get a residency, the process before used to be, it was complicated, but it was doable. Like if you could prove that you had a little business or you were you had to just prove some sort of employment, then that's how. And then of course, like an investment, like if you wanted to buy land, then that would be easier for you to get residency. So it's always been fairly easy to get residency if you buy land, and the land is yours. It's not like lease, like Nicaragua
Right.
or in other countries. Like
Mexico.
it's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
also there's no property tax there according to
no,
his own Twitter. Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah. So
yeah,
he's selling his country, in short.
yeah. I mean, but it's already like Bitcoin Beach, El Sonte, for example. That beach, El Sonte. I mean, it's completely been, with all due respect, it's been purchased by foreigners. A lot of Canadians. Well, the big Bitcoin guy there, Michael, is a missionary. He's an American missionary. Well, he's been there for 15 years, but especially lately, it's been purchased by a lot of foreigners, a lot of Canadians, Americans, Brazilians to a certain degree. So we're already seeing the beaches, Bitcoin Beach in particular in El Salvador, being purchased by foreigners. Like I already said, like the land is already too expensive for a local Salvadorian. Like a local Salvadorian cannot afford a $50,000 plot of land. It just period, end of story. And then the cheap lands um, are very rugged. They're gang controlled. I mean, it's a whole complicated thing. But like if you can come in and you have the money. I mean, right now, El Salvador, the point I want to make is right now in El Salvador, the only people that can buy land are foreigners and very wealthy Salvadorians, period.
Sorry, I just wanted to add a little thing in here. So I just by quick search of University of Google, um, foreigners can buy land in El
Yeah.
Salvador. Apparently, there might be a thing around not buying rural land. There might be a little bit of protections around that, but they can buy land
Yeah.
and own land. I did just want to add something based on something Cheryl just said. So Cheryl said he's selling his own country. I think we need to really, really check how we talk about certain global South countries or South American countries
Thank
over
you.
how we talk about Western countries. For instance, in the United States, anyone can buy land. If you have enough money, you can buy the land, and it is free and clear for you to own. We don't say that the United States is selling their own country. We need to really check how we are talking about this. Thank you.
One interesting.
But you do pay taxes, and that's what the attraction is. They're trying to attract talent to come, and attracting them by offering residency that comes with tax benefits, and I'm not sure how that benefits the country.
In the United Kingdom, we do that everywhere. We do that in the USA. We try to attract talent. What I'm saying is the way that we talk, specifically when it's countries outside of the West, is really clearly different. And we need to, I'm not saying that what they're doing is right or wrong. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong or right. I'm saying that the language that we use and the way that we use it is actually a little bit weird. We say things like selling their own country. What is it? Imprisoning
Design
their own people.
I'll just be
Hold,
very
let me finish,
direct and
Cheryl.
tell you
Cheryl,
what's going to
let me
happen.
finish. Let me finish, Cheryl. Just a
Yeah.
second, and I'll be very quick. We say things like abusing their own people. It's the same thing that governments all over the world do. So if there isn't a distinction within that, then we really shouldn't be making that distinction. Thank you.
Okay, Design Juju, just let me know, just let you know the extreme thoughts that I may have. Okay, this may not be true, but Chinese can go in, buy the land, and build a military base there, very near to US.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
No, it's not a question. I'm just saying, giving you a scenario. I'm saying that the rich Chinese can buy lots of land there, build a military base there, very close to United States.
I think that's a bit of a ridiculous question. You cannot go in and buy land and turn it into a military base anywhere in the world.
No, it's a freehold land. It's a private freehold land.
Let me answer. Irrespective of
Guys,
where you are,
can we raise the level of the discussion here? Just 1 second. Cheryl, your point has been made, right? It's pretty tough. It's absolutely point made, right?
May I?
And Design Juju, thanks for the call out on how we talk about stuff, and we just kind of, in terms of the words and everything we use. So but we can move forward.
May I give you some future news for that region?
Go ahead, Heyman.
Okay, so this was announced yesterday. Huawei, as we know, has been having a lot of embargo by the U.S., right? So they're pivoting to now financial technologies. And their target is basically going to be the Central America, South America. And they're hoping to get a lot of the people who are not connected to the digital economy on board. This is along with their 5G technology, they're going to be working on financial technologies. That includes how to connect all these people. So, and also, as I mentioned before, there was an article before that a couple of months before, China has been working with El Salvador, but that sort of triggered the U.S. to get alarmed. And so that's why the El Salvadoran president actually started reacting, saying that, no, we don't want China to control our economy and our finances. And that's why the Bitcoin started up. So look for Huawei making inroads into that region because they actually want to work in the financial devices sector now.
Please tweet that article so I can.
I have tweeted to you.
Please tweet it right now so I can retweet it.
I did. Okay, I'll retweet it again.
Yeah, I'm looking at
and
the tweet.
Thank you, Hyman. And thank you, Hyman, because that's exactly the point. I think what Cheryl and Nizanju, excuse my language, was talking about land ownership and everything else. It's a race for tech at the end of the day.
And also it's a race for control as well. And there is a component of the Chinese trying to get not a military, but a ship, sort of a port in El Salvador. That's been a long-standing issue that's been in the works, and that might still happen.
Here's an interesting point buried within the El Salvador president's conversation, which is he specifically named that he was inspired to do this. Somebody had asked 30 minutes ago, why is he doing this? What's the impetus behind this? Joseph asked this. And when asked that, he responded by saying he was inspired by two things before his phone died. He said he was inspired by Bitcoin Beach, which Valentina referred to, which we can talk about, and then also Jack Dorsey he was inspired by. Those were the two things that he named. And that beach,
I think it was Jack Mallers. He was referring to, wasn't he?
He did say Jack. You might be right. You could be totally
that's
right.
the founder of Stripe.
You're right. He said the word Jack. I'm just recollecting, and I have the recording. He did say the word Jack, and I assumed he meant Jack Dorsey. And yet again, I think you're right, Nicholas. Thank you. And that's interesting. That makes it even more interesting, doesn't it? That he would be inspired by that Jack from Strike, is it? Who's making the wallet. And so there's obviously a kind of a private, personal.
I believe there was two references.
Yep.
There might have been one to Twitter Jack and one of Strike Jack.
Yeah.
And there's an additional factor. Paraguay is going to go with PayPal and Bitcoin. That's what they've sort of working with.
It's very interesting. So this, I want to make sure I understand, because I want to do, somebody made a beautiful joke about Google University. That's my new favorite word of the day, by the way. As a PhD in
Design Juju.
Yeah, design juju. That's genius, by the way. I am I'm a
In
PhD.
Japanese, in Japanese, you call it Google Sensei.
Yeah, Google Professor Google. It's Playa del Zonte is what they're referring to, is it?
Yes, El Sonte. Here's another thing
Yeah.
that has been happening in Salvador is that all of the beaches are now called Surf City under Nayib. So all of the beaches have been taken away, their original names, and now it's Surf City. And Sonte is now being called Bitcoin Beach.
And I'm just looking at it on the Google Maps satellite view, and it appears that a friend of mine has the biggest house there on that beach already, to your point.
Oh, Michael.
Yeah. So it's I just want to do a lot of investigating about it, and it's a very interesting topic. But the point that the president, and this is the point I want to get into, is the president himself says he's inspired by Bitcoin Beach, which, to your point, has been taken over in some part by foreigners, perhaps more than any other part of El Salvador, right? Geographically, in terms of
Misata and El Sonte are the big foreigner hubs.
Right. So for him to say that his reason for doing this is he's inspired by this part of town that has been taken over by foreigners itself is worth contemplating.
I mean, like I said, if we're talking about solutions here, I'm saying that the way this is being done is not the right way. He announced the Bitcoin announcement, was it this morning? And they voted on it tonight. And so there's just not a lot of, he is, in the way he does things, it's very authoritarian. Like, he doesn't consult with the public much. It was a little bit forced. Again, going on to the spirit of this room, if we can find solutions where it can be done, this process can be done transparently, consulting the public, working with, with everybody working together in a transparent fashion, then let's applaud it and let's all work in towards a better system. But what is being sold internationally versus what's happening locally, all I'm saying is two different stories.
One thing that you guys
May I
might want to
speak?
consider, one second for us. One thing you guys might want to consider is Kamala Harris's announcement today with López Obrador in Mexico. They actually said that Guatemala, I think El Salvador, and Nicaragua are the main reasons for the refugee crisis at the border, right? And they said they are planning to work together to try to implement some sort of a incentive programs or development programs for that region. So this might be also an effort by El Salvador to take control of their own developments rather than having these bigger forces coming in as an excuse. I'm not sure. Those in this region might understand this more.
Another angle to this is, as Tyler just pointed out, there's some Jack, some CEO Jack named Jack involved in this, whether it's Strike or Stripe or Square, whatever is happening on that end. But these companies or PayPal, in the example someone else just gave, these companies are going to have a huge role to play. I don't know the specifics of these deals, but they tend to charge fees. So whatever transactions, whatever transfer of currency, I imagine that that's going to tack on, some extra expense for whoever's doing commerce in these crypto or Bitcoin. Just another angle.
It's worthwhile noting in that respect that that the lady, I think, who referred to, or someone referred to Paraguay and PayPal, that PayPal is essentially the IOU Bitcoin, and that it is powered by a company called Paxos, which is controlled by a man called Chad Cascarilla, who you will look up is someone who's been a big hedge fund manager who did particularly well during the GFC. And so, be careful who you get into bed with.
By the way, the president mentioned that he, at the very beginning of the call, which there was it was kind of impressive to me that it was only, I'm trying to remember who the first person to join with me in this room. It was only 10 people for the first half hour of it, but he mentioned he's meeting with the IMF today. And I wonder if they perhaps, again, this is pure speculation, X-Files music, please, that the urgency to do the vote might have been to preempt his meeting with the IMF, or there's some political maneuvering in some capacity. There's some, some interesting, not totally understood by everybody, kind of power movements happening under the surface.
The IMF will not be very pleased about him running a $150 million stabilization account when he's running a $500 million deficit. That's what the IMF is going to care about.
Yeah, and then they asked him, what about, has he heard from the Americans? Did you hear that part, Nicholas? Because you came in quite early. In his response to the question of, have you heard from the Americans yet? And he said, yes, that he had. But
I would suspect that he was given very firm guidance that the blessing, like the person before said, is the way that America wants to work is through its corporations, and PayPal and the groups that work within that are fully regulated by the US regulator and fall in line with the FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force, and the Financial Action Task Force coordinates all the major nations. And if you go against those group of people, you're going to have issues. So I think politically he's, I think it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, well, it's going to get.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up quickly on Nicholas. Tyler, do you mind?
Go, no, you're always welcome.
A few threads together. Yeah, sorry, and please cut me off if I'm ranting too much.
Okay.
But one of my favorite failure investments as a VC in Africa is a company called Golix in Zimbabwe, which was an exchange about 5 or 6 years ago that I backed. And it was an amazing introduction, regardless of the success and failure of that company. It was an amazing introduction to this topic of what happens when a sovereign nation starts to get into crypto. So just to give you context, Golix had the highest price of Bitcoin around the world at that time, around 2015. People were trading a lot of it, and Zimbabwe was on the sanctions list, right? Kind of similar to what Nicholas was saying, like you have this obviously money laundering task force around the world that monitors countries and can put you on the sanctions list. Some of the use cases I was blown away with. People were using Bitcoin to import cars from Japan through the exchange. The Ministry of Health was using it to import medicine because they couldn't access the SWIFT network because there were sanctions, as I mentioned, right? But one of the things I realized from that, and one of the reasons I invested in this company, and I can see that there isn't in El Salvador, and maybe Valentina can correct me, is at least in Zimbabwe you had mobile money, which is basically GSM, SIM card only, no internet connected, so Econet, so EcoCash. People could use that to transact with it. So they had an offline way, not in a country that had fairly low mobile penetration for broadband. People had feature phones. So that lesson really kind of, and essentially this company imploded because the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, which already was accepting, by the way, at least 8 legal tenders. You could buy a coffee with dollars and get rand or pounds or euros as change. They essentially banned it or kicked out Golix, and this led to the crash of the company because of the run on the bank. People were so I think they imported a Bitcoin ATM into the country, and that really caused a frenzy. And people were starting to really transact using Econet Wireless, the EcoCash mobile money to buy Bitcoin and maybe do nefarious things. So does El Salvador have an offline or at least mobile money equivalent? Maybe some of the impact investors in the room, like Florian or Sarah, might know this better. That can help at least get Bitcoin to the hands of, I guess the poorer or at least middle class and below. Because otherwise, this will just be beneficial big business and those wanting to buy land. As you mentioned, Bitcoin Beach, it won't filter down that quickly if there isn't the infrastructure.
These people barely have credit cards.
Yeah, but I fully agree. But this is, again, fintech we're looking at. We're using, for example, some similar wallets in Colombia right now for the marginated population, where we actually use to push money through, and the government used that. and we went from 300,000 users to 1.5 million in a span of months during the COVID time. So I have hope that if we use the microfinance small pockets, which are not guaranteed, then there's no back. It's really just a digital way to do that. And sorry for the noise here. I'm in the city here in Geneva. But that's something where we basically, well, I actually see a possibility of combining, and I have actually hope, and the conversation we have that in several countries going on, also in Africa, in the same sense that we actually want to use microfinance fintech approach of small wallets with small pocket of money being circulated very quickly, and it's much faster to use cryptocurrency rather than a fiat.
Can I
There
make
is
a
So
quick
mobile wallet.
question?
To your question,
PwC
there is mobile
report.
wallet in El Salvador.
No, okay, but they don't even have bank accounts, most of the
So,
people. So can we
so
start with that?
to this point, there was a recent PwC report that looked at the usage and implementation of CBDC projects, and they're fastest growing in emerging economies. So Cambodia ranked top in the world in terms of retail projects. Thailand, we're not necessarily emerging, but we rank top in the world for interbank transfer. And so I think what's happening is that this technology is allowing countries that don't have fully implemented your effectively managed fiat systems, they're using it as a leapfrog approach so that they are able to engage in commerce and grow their economies.
And yes,
And to
Valentina,
add to your
you
point, I
you
have
don't.
pulled out a stat that I think is interesting. So, indeed, there is mobile money in El Salvador, and it covers a large portion of the territory. So, as Florian was saying, it might be used for a last mile exchange facility.
And the people, and you don't need a bank account. You just need a cell phone, even not even a smartphone, even with feature phones. Some of the transactions we're doing with mobile money, or many of those. So again, it's not about bank account. It's really a possibility. And again, maybe it's a long shot, but I see the possibility of cryptocurrencies much faster, cheaper to handle, and in a more, from an inclusion point of view, a big potential over time. But let's see.
Will
I
there
have
be
to be
broadband everywhere?
I often explain mobile money in Africa, which by the way is 300 million wallets and counting, right? As imagine an offline Venmo that works with SMS, not with the internet. So it's a feature phone. So when I say offline Venmo, it means that you didn't have to have a bank account to have that Venmo, right? You could sign up, you have an agent, you go to a corner store, there's an agent that basically cashes in, cashes out. It's an on-ramp to the mobile money ecosystem, the e-money, right? That's typically what distinguishes mobile money, financial inclusion, access, versus I guess this notion of unbanked. If you have a mobile money wallet in Africa, are you banked or unbanked? I think most people would say you're still unbanked because you don't have the full banking service. It's just a wallet. And so, yeah, if El Salvador has mobile money wallets that work offline like mobile money does in Africa, like with SMS, USSD, then you could start to easily interconnect, and that El Salvadorian street seller can accept maybe Bitcoin that way offline and it gets settled online, in the cloud somewhere. So
I
just wanted
think
to
I
put
think you make
an
a really good
expectation.
point. I think you make a good point. And my question for the people that work in Africa in particular is, how do you even set up the network infrastructure, right? Like, how do you get data on people's phones? You mentioned an SMS network, even that, right? Like, how do you even get coverage? And as somebody that has lived in that country, I mean, coverage there is only in the main cities, and then it's done. So it's like, is there talk right now about the infrastructure that it takes to just get data in people's phones? So like that, those basic things, you know what I mean, are not being discussed, and is the thing that I think
So
needs
Hold
more
on,
if
attention.
I
Ellis.
if I can add,
Hold on, Ellis. Michelle, you sent me some very good DMs. Michelle, I just wanted to clear the floor for you in case you wanted to jump in. Otherwise, I can make the point.
Yeah, so I was actually sending a DM to Tyler, actually highlighting that it actually exists in LATAM and it's owned by the same telco that would own it in other emerging markets. But I think it's also worth highlighting that it's owned by the telco. So for it to be crypto friendly and so on, it will have to be approved by whether it's maybe not Safaricom because they're not there, but Movistar and all of that. So it's not just like a plug and play. So I think it's kind of worth explaining how that layering on mobile money works. and that it's pretty centralized by the main telco players.
Yes, and to that point, it
Yes,
becomes
Michelle. Mobile money networks typically run by telcos. Some have tried to do ones without them, but you really need them to get the last mile reach. And they're very expensive, and they can piggyback off the infrastructure that they're already set up. So Safaricom, say, or Vodacom in Tanzania, or MTN, they've spent a lot of money building up the infrastructure, which covers a lot of Africa. And if you don't have, you just switch to the other network, which has, a competing mobile money service, right? So on my phone right now, I have M-Pesa on one SIM card, and I have Tigo Pass on the other SIM card. Tigo, by the way, used to be owned by an American company. I've forgotten the name. And Vodacom owns M-Pesa, which is like hundreds of millions of wallets in Africa.
And the Facebook plays into this space a bit, does it not, Michelle? There's certainly opportunities there that they are addressing the challenges and opportunities in Africa, which naturally would fit in this context with the developing parts of Central America. And because Facebook has pioneered one of the really interesting concepts of actually paying for the data, where in some parts of Southeast Asia, Facebook, the use of Facebook is free for the user without needing to pay for mobile data, because Facebook's paying for the data in exchange for showing ads through Facebook. Essentially, it's an ad-based, Facebook enables a sort of ad-based internet usage through their app, and that we have to credit Qualcomm for also pioneering the hardware part of that, where they have the chip that enabled Facebook to pay for the data to the end user. And people in the Philippines are very familiar with what I'm referring to. In Indonesia, I think is quite large on this as well. But then you start to see how the chain can develop through these links. It's really quite interesting. And thank you for raising the point, Michelle. And thank God you're here, Mobwana, to help us understand how it plays out in Africa, because it will play out the same way, no doubtly, as Valentina saying, in El Salvador, to make this whole kind of new vision come to fruition, if and when it does. It's very interesting.
I wonder if anyone has any thoughts as to whether this event will be a compelling catalyst for the adoption of Bitcoin on a broader scale.
Correct.
Obviously,
the neighbors, the neighboring countries, and that's why I'm saying
right.
That's why we want to focus on just how is this actually going to unfold on a technical, social basis, because it is challenging, to Victoria's point, and we should look to Africa to help understand how it could unfold, because they've been unfolding it in this way.
Well,
and Facebook has played a role in part of this in different places as well. And because if it does unfold in a way that benefits them, and there's any optimism, or then no doubt you will see the neighbors of El Salvador likely jump on board this train if it starts picking up steam.
well, if I may intercede, guys, first and foremost, um, El Salvador has dollarized their economy, right? So they use the U.S. dollar as their currency, which should help battle um, high inflationary pressure that's come from accepting such a volatile currency. But $150 million stabilization fund is so minuscule when you start talking about in terms of a forex stabilization fund. It could find itself very vulnerable to forex traders who go in and create a lot of beta within the conversion. So, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to put a large enough stabilization fund in between, because of the high volatility in Bitcoin between acceptance and then converting back to U.S. dollars.
And maybe it's U.S. backed on the dollar side. This could be also, rather than pumping in aid money, and aid money doesn't, lift the poor off the ground. Maybe there's a way that, because it's not replacing the dollar, it's just interacting with the dollar. So maybe there's a way these guys have already spoken to. So not the conspiracy theory on the Chinese side, but maybe just saying in a way to collaborate here in order to benefit at the end the transactions locally.
The US government will never, ever encourage people to remove reserves from US dollars.
Never. With a double emphasis on it.
Well,
time
hold
will
on.
come.
Okay,
Time
so
will come.
hold on. So, okay, guys. I'm sorry. I just want to add a couple of points, if I may. This is LS. On the economic trends, and I think, and this is just my opinion, we're moving in a different paradigm, and we've been operating on labor intense resources, capital structure. But the digital economy, which goes back to circa 1995 or before, was never envisioned. And I think a lot of government leaders are starting to at least listen to people younger or encompass that versus like the labor and who controls what. And for disclosure, the US dollar has been a reserve currency since 1954, circa that, sometime around that, Britain's Woods. And I think the world is figuring out we're in a digital world. And so we look at Facebook and we're on Clubhouse and all these apps. We know the value. This isn't GDP. This isn't gross domestic product. And just for disclosure to everyone in the room, my focus is AI, AGI, and economics. And I'm deep in economics, okay? Deep. I'll go way back. So if you look at the structure, and I had to learn it for myself, what moves the world? Why has the world moved for the last 100 years? You're looking at an economic structure. And so when you look at that, I think some of these politicians, good or bad, are latching on to these, these quick misnomers, whether it be Bitcoin, crypto, or whatever. But they're looking for different vehicles and technologies. And at the end of the day, it's innovation. Innovation, I've always believed this, and that's something I learned from my advisor, Professor Ron Harvard at Stanford, is innovation is greater than inflation globally. If we innovate, we don't need to worry about anything else. But what happens when countries are fat on their calves in any country? Okay, they've benefited, they've done well, and they sit back and they don't do anything. You have to innovate. And I think what we're looking at with crypto and Bitcoin and everything else is innovation. It doesn't mean that it's the be-all, end-all. It just means we need to iterate better. And I think that's where we're heading to. And then we're going to go to space and we're going to do everything else. And so,
Les,
yeah.
can I ask you a question? My question to the stage here is, I support innovation, and of course, when you live in the U.S., you it's the number one thing the message that we want to export to the world: innovation, innovation. In the case of countries like El Salvador, how do we expect a country to leapfrog in this crypto world when it doesn't even have, for example, like a recycling system? It cannot even provide water. Like, it doesn't have an effective like water system. Like, talk about basic infrastructure needs are not even being met. And so I guess my question to the Bitcoin community would be, if we're going to go into these developing countries where the governments are hungry, right, for innovation and for something new, and they're hungry to distance themselves from, the US imperialists or whatever, because that's the message that they sell. What role does the Bitcoin community play in saying, okay, if we're going to go into this country and bring this technology to this country, and it's going to be welcomed with open arms by the governments, but there has to also be some sort of stipulations. If you want Bitcoin to operate, then what are we going to do about the recycling system? What are we going to do about environmental issues in your country? How is Bitcoin going to finance water projects? Where are those conversations in these talks? It's just
No,
my
Valentina.
part.
And so, we can talk offline. I'll send you my book, digital copy, free. I am not in the Bitcoin community. I've just been in the community from that standpoint. And I am not Satoshi Nakamoto. But let me tell you what my interpretation of his meaning was. If you can create something economically that didn't have a three-party system, and I don't want to go too deep on this, you can verify it algorithmically, okay? You can actually confirm it where it couldn't be hacked by except quantum. Then you could have a trust system where people could begin to trade something, barter and trade in the past. And so I'm not talking about the ones who speculate the currency. I'm not talking about the ones that's up to them. That's individually spoken. I'm talking about what was meant, in my opinion, And I've been there at the beginning from the intention. What does this mean? Like, who created this or what or who or how many people? What does it mean to create this system? It's a system where we're accountable and we're transparent. And so we don't just print money or any country. We don't just continue to do what we want. And so that's what I envelope as the Bitcoin community. Not the currency, not the speculation, not the bullshit. And for disclosure, I own no crypto coins at all. Never have, never will. I was always in this place from the technology, and will always be, because I didn't want to create something that I couldn't participate in. But all I'm saying is that in that being said, you're talking about innovation and technology. You need to bring something to people where they can know how they can code, how they can build the future. You know, how anyone, no matter what your background, can be inspired to do something better, to be who you are. People look at me like, LS, you're this and that. I'm like, bullshit. Fucking, I grew up in the hood. You know, never knew my real father ever. Okay, never even met him. All right? But I have a son, and I'm blessed to know his mom, and we're not together, but for disclosure. But I've been in his life all 17 years, and he's on his way to MIT. And I said, I will never abandon you, even though me and your mother doesn't get along. See, I broke all the statistics because I'm a black man, and I'm not supposed to be in my son's life because I wasn't with his mother. I did all that shit. So
And
I'm
so
sorry, I'm getting emotional.
we celebrate it. We celebrate it. We lock arms with you because your achievement is outstanding. And I think if you were to look
Thank
at
you, Dave, for
statistics,
shutting me up, because sometimes I keep going.
no, I'm serious because we got to know each other. We got to know each other. I'm sure we would get a little mic flash to celebrate LS because he's LS. That's all I'm gonna say.
You said it, because sometimes you need to stop me because I'll keep going. I'll get emotional because this is bullshit. Like, what are we doing with our lives? Like, you know, like, I mean, Dave, I know him. I know Cal and Tyler. It's just, what the fuck are we doing? We just do all this shit for what? We can't take it with us. I don't care who you are, right? You're Kobe Bryant, and I knew him.
LS,
I
I'd
mean,
love to.
Yeah. And so I want,
Can I share
yeah,
an
hold
anecdote?
on a second.
so let me conclude. Let me conclude with Valentina. So, Valentina, I'm sorry. So, in concluding, check everything. Technology can be a liberator, but check and balance everything. And there are systems and people in place. And there's Google University, and there's all these people who are helping, and there's tech news around the world. That's why I'm committed to this every night when I shouldn't be, but it's okay. But you know, I mean, I'm talking about it's late for me because I'm on the West Coast, but it's good. It's a good thing. And look at Clubhouse. Look at life. I mean, that's all I can say. Just be hopeful, because I was in a dark place, and I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what you have, what wealth, what power. We need to change the future for what's coming behind us, not what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless I hear you, there's a reason why I left the US, Silicon Valley, with a high paying job to move back to Africa to invest in tech startups. Development can be driven by technology. I really believe that. What you just said, I think a lot of people on this stage, Florian and others, this is an experiment, a bet on an innovation potentially, and so we should watch. But yeah, I left Silicon Valley because I didn't want to invest in the next, 20-minute delivery of your laundry e-commerce app or some dating thing. I was, driven to go back home and help the continent, and with the fundamental belief that technology can help uplift. And by the way, it doesn't always start evenly, right? Smartphones were in Africa. Money wasn't there before, right? And trying to raise money and convince people to come to Africa and invest, they laughed at me at the beginning. They said that, Africans will never own smartphones. They said that. I tried to get a job in an impact fund, one of the big billionaire philanthropy organizations, and they said, Africans, they didn't say that. I'm being a little bit harsh on them, but they essentially said, we want to hire Americans to go back to Africa and invest in startups, And now I'm like just loving that there's so many other people out there in Africa investing, impact or otherwise, right? Particularly in Nigeria, there's a lot more investors, doing this. So, the intersection of technology, this is crypto into development is very powerful if done well and correctly. And we should take lessons, hopefully, from other countries. But yeah, like I hear Valentina saying, we don't want to just throw some technology over the fence and think it's going to help poor people. No, but it can over time, if done smartly, uplift and reduce equality. I
Can
really
I can
believe
I
that.
share can I
What?
share
Yeah,
something,
One.
yeah.
please? Can I share
Uh,
something, please? I'm born and raised in
okay.
Silicon Valley. I'm born and
1 minute,
raised.
please, Joseph.
Okay, go
No,
ahead.
you go for you. I'll give you 30 seconds. Please conclude.
Oh, I'm born and raised in Silicon Valley, and I've seen the changes occur over time. That it brings money, it brings innovation, and there's all these high hopes and grand visions. But for the people that lived here, it disenfranchised many people. Almost all the people I know had to move away, and so what it is it creates a benefit for people that come there generally, and that's not in all cases, but Um, there is this trend, this kind of recurrence of when new wealth comes and investment comes, as has been pointed out on the stage, it doesn't often lead to prosperity for all. And I think there's those on the stage who view this occurrence as possibly a net positive for the people of El Salvador, or possibly a net negative. I think more of the observations have been on the side of a net negative. It remains to be seen whether that will play out that
Yeah,
way.
that
We'll
is
see.
the big billion-dollar question that we're going to end that part of the conversation on: is will this be a net positive or net negative? Time, of course, will tell, and we're going to watch it unfold and in real time, and try and get glimpses over the horizon as it all happens. There's a whole while we've had this conversation, people in this room have been sending in fantastic headlines from around the world that we're going to jump into. Rideja, as always, and Poppy, of course, are leading the charge. Rideja also found something, just a technicality point that was in the letter of the law. Rideja, did you want to share that about the people who don't understand the law or not actually held as part of it?
Sure. So, I was actually just reading the entire legislation that has been passed. It's just a 3-page document, and I've tweeted it for anyone who wants to see it. So, there's Article 7 that says that every economic agent must accept Bitcoin as payment when offered to him,
Yep.
right? But there's an
Mm-hmm.
exception in Article 12 in that same legislation, which says that those who do not have the access to technology to carry that particular transaction in Bitcoin are excluded from that obligation, and the state is going to promote the necessary training and mechanisms so that the population can access Bitcoin.
Interesting. So it's a really
So,
interesting exception or exclusion clause, because now the people selling bananas can say, "No, I don't have a phone to accept your Bitcoin." End of discussion. So it's they essentially do get to opt in or opt out by having or not having the hardware necessary to execute it in some sense.
But I thought that I heard the president say that they would be
Yeah,
providing technology
I
for
did
people
too.
who didn't
Yeah,
have it.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
The wallet is software,
Yes,
not
but you
hardware.
need,
The
but
wallet is
but you
software,
need
not
some
hardware.
kind of hardware to execute the software.
For people who
Exactly.
so
don't
So
have
they're
it
going to
does
mobile
provide.
say
phones.
that
So they'll
Uh,
provide a wallet, but not a hardware to
Right.
host the
So,
wallet.
I'm
uh,
pausing for that conversation for a minute to jump into headlines, because in 35 minutes, we're going to hand over the room to our friend Ben, all about crypto wallets, or he's going to do his Bitcoin basic rooms for everyone who's a little confused about what we're talking about wallets and hot wallets and cold wallets and all that. Well, you came to the right place, my friends, because Ben is doing his follow up on the topic of wallets, and you're going to learn everything you need to know about that. And if you're from El Salvador and selling fruit, you're really going to want to join that conversation, because your government just passed a new law in about a half an hour ago that's going to that's very relevant to that case. So, some headlines to jump into. And thank you to everyone who is sharing these in. And my apologies because I've got a bunch and I can't remember who sent each of these in. I believe Rengent sent in this one about my dear friend Peter Carlson in Stockholm, who left Tesla to make Northvolt to make batteries for the German car companies. And now Northvolt just raised today $2.75 billion in their latest round, which means Stockholm is now going to raise more money this year than probably Germany and maybe even France, thanks to my friend Peter at Northvolt for that one. And I will bring him in here whenever he gets a break, because we chat off privately on Facebook regularly, but I have not yet sent him an invite to join us, but I will now that he's done this huge fundraising round of $2.75 billion in his latest fundraising to build bigger and more factories for the Germans. And thank you for who sent that in. And then Michelle from Facebook sent me a DM that Instagram is in the headlines today. Instagram begins testing a native affiliate tool. What's a native affiliate tool? Well, you might have heard, if you join me every day, you know I've been talking about the upcoming wave of social commerce where influencers will need some kind of tool to match with brands to sell stuff to their users, to their audience, to leverage their following and audience. And now Instagram begins testing this affiliate tool, they're calling it. More ways for creators to set up shops. And you can see this from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg unveiled several updates during what they call Creator Week. And you can see how an Instagram influencer can now get set up to sell all kinds of crazy stuff from their account directly. And then it shows their analytics of how much money they're making from the products they are selling directly from their Instagram accounts. And there's multiple photos all about it of how they are now making shops inside of Instagram. It's very interesting indeed. As I've been saying, would be coming for about 3 months now. And there it is in the photos. It's just a matter of time before you see that in your Instagram feeds, as we are seeing it in Southeast Asia. Another thank you for that, Michelle. It's amazing to finally see it arrive in the US. And a really interesting article about a robot named Grace, which is being called a healthcare robot that created out of COVID-19. A Hong Kong team behind celebrity humanoid robot Sophia is launching a new prototype named Grace, targeted at the healthcare market and designed to interact with the elderly and those isolated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Dressed in a blue nurse's uniform, Grace has Asian features, collar-length brown hair, and thermal camera in her chest to take your temperature and measure your responsiveness. She uses AI to diagnose a patient and can speak English, Mandarin, and Cantonese. I can visit with people and brighten their day with social stimulation, but can also do talk therapy, take bio readings, and help healthcare providers, Grace told Reuters as she stood next to her sister Sophia at Hansen's Robotics in Hong Kong, which I've had the pleasure to chat with. And they've,
like the name, Tyler, like grace, we receive what we do not deserve. I mean, I'm not going to give you a sermon on Jesus, but it always humbles me to even think of that word, like back in the spirit of like what LS said in terms of like, doing good. Grace is like doing unto other people, irrespective of how they do unto you. It's a beautiful word.
Yep.
I like it.
By the way, these articles and these headlines I'm jumping through are being shared by people on stage and in the audience. And I'm retweeting them from our Twitter account at Tech News Around the World. TNATW is the Twitter account. And you can share articles yourself. Just include our Twitter account as part of your tweet, and then we can retweet it to our ever-growing list of intelligent and beautiful Twitter followers. And here's a humdinger of one. Yesterday, there was a headline that the Senate was going to vote on a bill to stay competitive with China in terms of technology, and now that bill has passed. So the headline right now is U.S. Senate passes sweeping bill to address the China tech threat. U.S. Senate voted 68-32 in the past few hours to approve a sweeping package of legislation intended to boost the country's ability to compete with Chinese technology. And then it's a very long article, so I'll let you do that. The measure authorizes about $190 billion for provisions to strengthen U.S. technology and research, and would separately approve spending of $54 billion to increase U.S. production and research into semiconductors and telecommunications equipment, including $2 billion dedicated to chips used by automakers that have seen massive shortages and made significant cuts. And then China has responded by expressing strong indignation and resolute opposition, quote unquote, to the bill. It said in a statement that the U.S. bill showed, quote unquote, paranoid delusion of wanting to be the only winner, and had distorted the original spirit of innovation and competition. So you can read all of the quotes yourself. Biden praised the bill by saying, "We are in a competition to win the 21st century, and the starting gun has gone off. We cannot risk falling behind." Many General Motors said this represents an important step to address the semiconductor shortage that continues to impact automotive manufacturing. And there's several other interesting quotes. As China has made it clear they are going to Mars, we are going back to the moon to ready ourselves to go to Mars. Which that's from a U.S. politician who I can't quite find the name of, but I did tweet that article out, and it's very relevant because the New York Times just a few hours ago came out with their own article titled "China is trying to tame inflation. It matters too much of the globe. Rising cost at its factories and accelerating trends new data showed could trickle into the rest of the world economy if China does go through inflation. No doubt that will spread throughout the rest of the world as they produce a lot of goods, and those goods go to the rest of the world. So the inflation will trickle down, as they say. That's from the New York Times. Thank you to who sent that in. Two more quick ones. Amazon is confronting the richest man in India. The American company Amazon sees big potential in the country's nascent e-commerce market, as we've been talking about here every day for many months. Both sides view a troubled grocery store chain as the key to success, called Big Bazaar. And now you know why Tata, one of India's biggest conglomerates, is also investing very big into the supermarket space, and Amazon is as well. And we will continue to analyze precisely what the moves are there with regard to India and e-commerce and why the supermarkets play such a key role. So thank you to who sent that in. And here's the last one that I say for last because this is a wild one, y'all. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, it's now been leaked, apparently. It's being reported that Hunter Biden addressed his lawyer, who is Caucasian, as an N-word multiple times and used the phrase, "True that, my N-word," and bantered, "I only love you because you're black," in a shocking texts unearthed days after Joe Biden's emotional Tulsa speech decrying racism. Text messages obtained reveal Hunter Biden used the N-word multiple times in banter. And now there's more than meets the eye here, as usual. The question is, why is this coming out? This isn't Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. It's not technically that important politically because a president's child isn't hold office anymore. They did in the previous administration where, anyway, that's a long story. But in this case, why I think it's interesting that this is coming out right now because about a week ago, it was revealed that Amazon was purchasing MGM Studios, which holds the rights to The Apprentice, which was a TV show starring one Donald J. Trump. And it is well known in Hollywood circles that the outtakes of The Apprentice contain clips of Donald J. Trump also using the N-word. And so I'm wondering if this Hunter Biden story is being used to, in a kind of strategic way, to defuse what they perceive as a coming attack towards Mr. Trump of his use of the N-word, and they are now trying to establish that kind of normalize the use of the N-word amongst the political sphere. So that would be my guess, that we're now soon going to see the tapes being released from The Apprentice. Anywho, yes.
Tyler.
Yes,
It's
LS.
LS.
I can't.
I'll
Your
speak
voice is
briefly.
distinct enough, LS.
Yeah,
Wait.
Oh,
Was that
wow.
Cheryl? Is that
I
Cheryl
know.
trying to
It's
jump
like,
in? Yeah. Is that?
No,
Are
okay.
you
Let
guys
me
from
just be
Go ahead.
brief.
Toronto?
No, let me just be brief and quick. I was going to say this before you said that, and Cal always gives you credit. And Tyler, I want to say this from my heart. You're a great
Oh, thanks.
moderator. You really are. No, please let me finish, okay? Because don't cut me off. I know you do, but don't. But you can't.
Stop, Tyler.
yeah, stop.
Like Cal says, I know you hate taking credit. And my friend, I am older, than 42. That's all I'll say. And I would not do something in my life at this time, given all my pain and problems, you inspire me, and you know, I've even told my girlfriend, and she may be in the room or not, and she's of Chinese descent, so don't worry. But I said, she's like, why do you spend so much room with him? I said, that's therapy. She's like, but you know all this tech. I said, no, it's the people. It inspires me that we can change this world. Like my chairman, and I'm blessed to have these people, NASA and all these things. Sometimes we get so dark in our world, we don't believe we can change the world. And we have to always believe that. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and I'll get to the point. But Tyler, you do it well, and Cal's a good moderator as well. Like to make it so technology is the future. And anyone who's hiding in a sandbox who thinks it's not, well, they'll figure it out. But you're bridging that gap to a lot of people who could just chime in, Twitter or Clubhouse, and know that this is what's coming. Because I'm a builder. I'm already doing it. I'll do it no matter what. And I'll sit on an island and buy whatever. But I'm trying to do it to help everyone. Because, you know, we can't leave it, you know, I don't want to preach. But we can't take it with us. So, Tyler, you're very good at that. So moving on, as Cal and you would say, because you'll cut me off. Moving on to your point, I think about the racist thing and why they're bringing up my nigga, okay, because I grew up with most hip hoppers and I know most of them. And if anyone want to call me, they know who I am and they know where I'm at, Southern
LS.
California. And you can find me, I'll see you in the real world, okay? So let's be that way. All right, so they know, I know. When you come to that, Joe Biden's son, I think, was hanging out with a lot. I'm sorry. And I don't want to get myself in trouble. A lot of street people. And I think he took on that culture. I really think he embraced it. I think he was hanging out way too much. And so when he says it, it's not right or wrong. I'm not saying he can't say it or not say it. But in the black community, in the U.S., I still say to my friends, my nigga, okay? That's real. So I'm going to be real. It's not politically correct. This is Clubhouse. But I say it to my boys. They say it to me. We know what we mean. There's no disrespect. But no one else better not say it. It's just sad. Like if anyone comes up and says it, like if you Tyler said my nigga, I'll be like, Tyler, I'm going to kill you. You know? But if Carl said my nigga, you know, I'll be
Grace,
like,
Grace
hey,
got it.
Carl, what's up? So that's how the world works, and we need to like get over this. I want to be deeper here. We need to get over this media connotations because that's how it works. Like there may be things in India that people say to each other, and you know the media blows this bullshit up to separate us so that we don't change the world. And that's what hurts my heart. So that's all I'm saying. Because, you know, like, you know, Tyler, I know you. You could be like, my nigga. And people would go, who's that white boy? Well, let's kill him. I'm like, no, that's my boy. You know, don't kill him. So, you know, but the media
LS
does this.
in the
Yeah.
in the same vein. At the age of 14, I went to Limpston. Now Limpston's where the Royal Marines get trained in England, and I was a boy coming over from Ireland. And at that time, it was still a little bit tasty, you know, Protestant Catholic, blah blah. So what? A guy when I was doing my potential officers course, one of the English guys, he saw me going around the the assault course, and he came up in my ear and he went, "Go on, Paddy, you can do it." And I'll tell you, there was nothing more inspiring than that guy shouting that in my ear. And he said, Paddy, with conviction in his voice, with a real kind of the same way as you say to your good friends. The so what is we need to make a careful delineation between the words and the context, just as you said. I'm out.
No, yes, Dave. And you said it better, my friend. And you're so clear. And I got to see you in Ireland soon. But yeah, because we get stuck on this bullshit, excuse my language for the
Not a hang
ladies
up.
in the room. And it's not about that. Like, you know, you'll find real people are real men, real women, We're trying to help the world, and we need to change the world, and we can do this. And they're trying to keep us stuck on some bullshit. Excuse
Yep.
my language. Like we get stuck on these labels that don't mean
Thank you,
anything.
LS. Nalormi, you just shared an article about Grace, an even better photo that you can now see from the Twitter account of this robot in its nurse's gown. And then Radeja, you just shared one about Facebook. You want to do that? Or Professor Asif, you have this one about COVID. You want me to do them? I can do them. So I just tweeted these out from the Twitter account. Apparently, thanks to Professor Asif, it says this new Delta variant of COVID is spreading in the UK. Doctors in India claim the Indian Delta COVID-19 variant is causing gangrene and deafness, which are a new wild change. Is my mic working? Okay, great.
Yeah, you're on. You're on,
Yes.
man. It's good. Yeah, they're
Okay.
just people are kind of
Yeah.
silent. That's
Also,
fine. You're
Radeja
on.
also sent in an update around the Ring Amazon cameras, and the headline is that Ring limits police access, but is it enough to silence the critics? And that's about the update that they made recently to be a little more transparent of what they've always been doing around sharing your cameras with the police and everything. And then Radeja's other article she just found is very interesting. Facebook confirms the realization of its own augmented reality software. And going a little deeper into this article, it says the social network confirmed the development of an operating system for augmented reality glasses, which they don't currently have. They have a VR headset with Oculus. That's VR, not AR. And now they're talking about AR glasses for Facebook. Facebook confirmed the company is already working on its own operating system for augmented reality, which are glasses, not a whole headset, in order to optimize performance, energy efficiency, and computational capacity in normal-looking glasses. On the second day of June, Facebook shared the roadmap with augmented reality technology in the Spark AR Studio work team, which is in charge of developing the software with which AR effects are designed and implemented in devices and applications on the social network. It is a more long-term development project run by Andrew Bosworth and Mark Zuckerberg himself personally involved, and they commented that the virtual reality glasses would be accompanied by thermal glass protection, and they also have a very casual size so that they look like normal glasses, but with a capacity similar to that of a computer. So now you will have a computer on your face, which Google Glass, no doubt, deserves credit for pioneering, although that effort didn't quite work out maybe as they had hoped, but an important first stab at it. And it will be very interesting to see Facebook's version when they do announce it, whenever that might be. But thank you to Nalormi for sending that one in, and to Professor Asif again for sharing about this new Delta variant of COVID-19, which is causing deafness and gangrene, dear God, which is now has spread apparently to the UK. And that is actually, to me, one of the interesting things about COVID in early June of 2021 that we happen to be in, which is it's now a race between vaccinations and these new variants, which people in Vietnam and Thailand who never had COVID now have these really wild variations that are far more infectious or contagious. And let's hope everyone who has access to the vaccines takes advantage of them in light of this, because if Vietnam and Thailand are not able to keep this under control, you have no chance in hell, because we managed to keep COVID under control until a few weeks ago, and we didn't need the vaccine. Yeah.
Hey, Tyler.
Oh,
Yes.
Tyler.
Tyler, I have a piece of news that's
Go ahead, Ben.
relating to that on the
Yep.
COVID vaccine. Yeah. So some researchers from Duke just published a
Yep.
new study. They basically created what's called a coronavirus vaccine, and they have found that that particular vaccine could basically deal with all sorts of
Oh, that's good.
variants. Whether it's the wild type or the Brazil, the UK, the South Africa, blah blah blah. I'm not sure about the Delta, the Indian one, but they published the results in May in Nature, which is a relatively reputable journal. So if you do PTR, those of you in the room that are interested in this, you can see the article and you can look it up. I thought I wanted to share with this room because it could potentially be a very interesting discovery. because it would resolve a lot of the hesitancy now. We're considering, the vaccine would only work on one variant, but if there's new ones in the next year or whatever, what's going to happen? Are we going to do booster shots? Are we going to have problems? So if this actually does work, then it could be quite exciting. Now, the results now, they only have done it in monkeys and mice, so it's only animals. There is no clinical trial yet. But hopefully, if they move on to the next step, and this does work as what they call it, a pan-coronavirus vaccine. By the way, this works with the older coronavirus as well, like MERS, SARS, about 20 years ago. So it's quite an interesting study. So I just wanted
Thank
to
you for
share with
that.
that.
I've got a couple.
I'm done speaking.
Hisam, you want to jump in?
Yeah, can I share just a couple of things that are happening
Please
in the
do.
medtech space? The first one is that Grail starts selling its multi-cancer liquid biopsy Galleri in the United States. If you've been following Grail, they used to basically belong to Illumina, and then basically went on their own. And Grail basically has been trying to basically detect early cancers. And they did basically a study that looked at 6,600 people and then early detected 29 cancers, with 40% of them being stage 1 and stage 2, which are more responsive to treatment. What's interesting about this now is that Illumina is trying to buy back Grail and has to go through the FTC, and the FTC has been pretty clear that it is not going to allow that to happen. And why this is important is that Grail now will face challenges of getting insurers to support asymptomatic screening and competing with other partners that are other tests that are already in that market. And that's sort of headline one. And the big headline that sort of come out of my space is the new drug, aducanumab, which is basically a monoclonal antibody by Biogen, that basically is an Alzheimer's drug that basically was approved by the FDA. What has been interesting about this drug is that the data does not support its approval. And it is a very expensive drug to be giving, around $56,000 per injection per month. And there's a lot of debate about sort of how this ended up happening. And it is sort of the conversation that we've had sort of like with Florian in this room, which is that there are sort of three groups. There are sort of the doctors group, there is the insurers group, and then there are sort of the patient group. And this was really pushed by the Alzheimer's Association because we've not had a drug in this space for about 20 years. And so there's a lot of talk about this drug and its side effects. And I just sort of want to alert everyone because there is no doubt that this drug will be talked about a lot more in the next couple of months. And those are two headlines in medtech space.
Actually, Hisam, I can echo just a couple of quick points on what you just shared, if Tyler is okay with it. On the Alzheimer's drug, what's interesting is that it's a sort of a new direction that the FDA is a bit more aggressive in terms of allowing new drugs. And I'll just mention one aspect. I'm not making any conclusions. The aspect which is that the FDA was able to use what's called the surrogate endpoint. You mentioned that the clinical trials were not approved by the committees last year. That's true, but because there were two separate trials. One was significant, using the standard, the p-value or whatever the analysis. The other one was not, with respect to the primary endpoint, which is the clinical reduction of Alzheimer's disease. But this time around, the FDA basically looked at the data again and was able to use sort of the second endpoint, which is the reduction of the beta amyloid, which is the symptom very closely related to Alzheimer's. You have a lot of these bad proteins deposited in your brain, and that's believed to be causing the Alzheimer clinical symptoms. So I think the positive sign from my perspective, personal view, is that at least the FDA is opening up to balance the urgency of the patient demands and as well as the seriousness of the illnesses. And they were able to rely on the correlation between the reduction of the beta amyloid to the sort of the reduction of the disease, clinical disease, if you will, even though the drug itself didn't show completely on both trials. So I think that's sort of one positive aspect of this.
A whole bunch of people are sending in all kinds of fantastic articles at the moment. Uber and Lyft This one from the New York Times, and this is the headline. This is really interesting. New York Times reporting that Uber and Lyft aim to become profitable this year. That's a headline from the New York Times. Uh, yeah.
What?
It seems like, and then this is the amazing part, also part of the headline. It seems like the golden era of VC subsidized services like Uber and Bird is coming to an end. And to that I say, you, the journalist from the New York Times, are a complete effing idiot. You have no clue what you are talking about. You should not be writing articles about business that you fundamentally don't understand at all. You clearly, completely, thoroughly, entirely miss the entire point of what these companies are trying to do. And you are embarrassing yourself and your family name by writing these articles. Please stop doing it.
Hey Tyler, he's just a slogan, man. Come on.
So
His entire family,
embarrassing his
four
entire
generations of
his
Tyler, right?
ancestors. Yes,
But Tyler, maybe we should do a room on how are they
yes. No,
profitable.
but here,
I just need to understand that. I just
let me unpack
really
it. Here,
need to understand
let
that.
Uncle Tyler unpack this for you. Yeah, he's embarrassing
Ancestry,
his entire
everyone.
lineage, but with these ridiculous articles, and his cousins as well, and his future, children will all be tarnished by this article. This is just truly atrociously foolish to write these articles. Let me explain why. So it says Uber and Lyft aim to become profitable this year. Well, that's because they are public companies now, right? And the VC subsidized, as the second part is the real humdinger. It seems like the golden era of VC subsidized services like Uber and Bird is coming to an end. No, it most certainly is not. Here's what's really happening, Mr. Journalist. And I say him because his name's Kevin. So,
Doesn't this sound like someone who just wants to sound really
yes.
smart to
Well,
impress somebody, but really
just
knows nothing?
fundamentally doesn't understand.
Like me.
Let me. It's
Let
really simple.
Tyler
It's
unpack it.
so
Let
incredibly
him
simple.
unpack. He's on
When
this.
a startup company who is a consumer facing business like Uber or Bird. Bird, by the way, are the little mobility scooters you see driving around town, or any of their competitors. Doesn't matter which one. The little e-scooters or Uber and Lyft and those consumer mobility companies intentionally raise lots of money to keep the prices very, very low to drive lots of consumer adoption. They want people to get into the habit of using these things. They're very happy to help you pay for that ride. The ride might normally cost $6. They're going to pay half of it, so the ride's $3 for you because they want you to get into the habit of doing it. Right? Is that a wild idea? No, not at all. And they're right. That is VC subsidized services. They're raising money from VCs to subsidize the cost of the rides. That's right. But we were not in a golden era of VC subsidized services. That is the playbook of Silicon Valley to do that, and they will continue to do that. That is in no time going to be ending anytime soon. That is a fundamental business for the past 30 years, and it will be for the next 100 years. It's not, as they said, it seems like the golden era of VC subsidized services is coming to an end. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And and he says, we know this because now they're trying to become profitable so they can get off of the VCs. No, that's not why they're trying to become profitable, to get off of the VCs. They're getting off of the VCs now because they're publicly traded companies, and they've reached saturation in the markets, and they've killed off their competitors, and now they don't need to be in this subsidized war. They've agreed. Uber and Lyft are the last two remaining, and now they do this little handshake and say, okay, we're both going to raise our prices together. We're now both going to become profitable, and we don't no longer need to raise VC money. We're both public companies. We're both going to raise our prices. We decided who's going to conquer the globe. We killed our competitors. We no longer need to subsidize the rides. That's how it happens. That's business. So please, journalists that are covering tech companies, please go talk to a VC or a startup founder before you write these articles so you can understand what the fundamental business models of these companies are and why they're making their decisions, rather than assuming
Tyler,
that,
sorry.
yeah,
Tyler, this is LS. You need to stop. You have a
yeah,
family.
okay,
Stop this
yeah,
talk so you
yeah,
can live
yeah,
longer. Stop putting
I
too
got it.
much
But I
knowledge
need
out
the
there.
world, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
know,
know you.
yeah, yeah.
I know, but you just said the whole
Whew.
game.
Sorry, I just want to quickly say something. So, Tyler, a few weeks back, I think it's a few weeks, it might be days, we actually talked about media disruption and, people buying media houses and what that was about and all that kind of stuff. And we talked about news and how these things, even today, you talked about how the El Salvadorian news hadn't yet reached the mainstream media. I think one of the things we have to question when we talk about these things as tech people, again, in our own bubble, where we know these things, you are not the audience. I don't think any of us in here are the audience for these kind of news items. And we have to look in general at the way news is going with regards to, we have 24-hour news. So what do we do to keep the people interested and, most importantly, to keep the people entertained? What is the angle around tech news, people with money that people are really interested in? And let's face facts, if we look around at what's going on, people really don't like people with money. That's one of the first things. And people really don't like tech bros. And people don't like some of the startups that tech bros are building. I mean, we've been having bad news about Uber and all the scooter type things and the juicer type things for quite a while. So as I don't think the way that tech news is covered is going to change much unless there is a tech specific platform with tech specific interested people. And we already know where to go for that kind of stuff. It is annoying. It is irritating, but I don't think you need to lose any more hair
Hey, wait a minute.
over
Sign
that.
PJ, are you saying I'm catching on here, Tyler? This is the new thing we're
That's
doing
right.
here, right?
Well,
Oh,
but check this out.
wow.
So I
Okay.
want to thank April King, who's on Twitter, and I'm looking at April's bio. She's an engineer at Twitter, and she tweets this article out saying, this is a bizarrely framed New York Times article on why millennials have stopped exploiting downtrodden Silicon Valley billionaires, or as I might have called it, tech companies turn the screws after years of skirting the law and driving competition out of business. And April's right. They did drive their competitors out of business by subsidizing the rides. And now that they've done that, now they're going to tighten down the screws, meaning raise the prices on the consumers. Yes, that's how business works. Welcome to 2021, everybody. It's called venture capital and, wiping out your competitors. By the way, the Japanese pioneered this style of business development with razors and shaving products back in the freaking 1800s. This is just
and cars in
it
the
just
US
blows my mind that
way
that,
back.
that that people still don't understand something that's been going on for 100 years. Anyways, other really interesting articles that have happened in the past few hours. A U.S. state sues to have Google declared a public utility. Google should be designated a public utility, like the water and electricity in your house, subject to government regulation. And now you know why they want to make it a utility, so they can regulate it because governments regulate utilities. Regarding its search engine and other services, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost contending in a legal filing that Google should be designated a public utility subject to his government regulations because he wants to control Google. And the only way to do that is to make it a public utility because he's a politician, and that then it would fall under his jurisdiction of how to control Google. And good luck with that, I say to you, Mr. Dave Yost, Ohio Attorney General. We'll be following to see how that unfolds, but I just retweeted that so you can read that whole article. And a really interesting article. Thank you again to everyone who sends these in from USA Today. Vaccines 2.0, the next generation of COVID-19 shots will be cheaper, easier to deliver, and protect against more viruses, industry leaders say. And by the way, Ben was just saying there's now at Duke University, they're working on a pan variant version of the vaccine. Let's pray to God that works as intended. And there's also nasal versions, so the people who are afraid of needles, and there's all kinds of fantastic innovations happening on the vaccine front, and we wish them all the best. And speaking of wishing the best, in the ongoing drama between Nigeria and Twitter, Donald Trump now congratulates Nigeria for banning Twitter and says more countries should do the same. Well, now, this does beg the question, what's going to happen to Twitter if Donald Trump becomes president again, if they're banning him in his run for presidency? Today, former President Donald Trump issued a statement supporting the Nigerian government's decision to suspend Twitter activities in the West African country. Congratulations to the if somebody can do a Donald Trump impression, I certainly cannot. But congratulations to the country.
Losers.
Congratulations to the country of Nigeria, who just banned Twitter because they banned their president. Oh, now I see. Because yes, Twitter did ban the president, and Nigeria banned them back. And of course, Twitter banned the American president, and he very much would love to ban them back. That's what he's essentially what he's saying there. And then he's
If I'm elected, I'll ban them back.
and then he says more countries should ban Twitter and Facebook for not allowing free and open speech. All voices should be heard. In the meantime, competitors will emerge and take hold. Who are they to dictate good and evil if they themselves are evil? Perhaps I should have done it while I was president. Oh boy, he's not hiding any. He's not pulling any punches. But
sorry, I need to come in on this.
okay,
when you're done,
and then he
Tyler.
says, but Zuckerberg kept calling me and coming to the White House for dinner, telling me how great I was. 2024 question mark, he says. Wow. Go ahead.
Thank you. So just a point of clarity, Twitter did not ban the president of Nigeria.
Wait. Are you saying that Trump is got misinformation or spreading misinformation? That's not Juju. Alternative facts. Are you accusing Donald Trump of not having the...
I value my life. I make no accusations here or there. But no, there's something serious that I did want to say. So we need to clarify that, because I think it's very easy. A lot of people have been saying it just because it just becomes the easy thing to say. And actually, it's just they deleted a tweet. They did not ban him. The president of Nigeria considered banning Facebook because they also deleted his tweet, and he was advised that it would appear too petty. He shouldn't do it. So Facebook is live. Here's the funny thing. So again, because the courts are on strike, they're not sitting. The media houses cannot go to the courts to say, no, we actually need official documentation, because there is no law that allows them to do this. Moving this very swiftly, now the opposition party has refused the ban, and they are tweeting via VPN. Not only that, there are actual governors in Nigeria who've said, you know what, this is unconstitutional. We do not agree with this. Freedom of speech is a fundamental human right, and this breaches our fundamental human rights. They are tweeting within the country. Not only that, the Attorney General, who actually said they will arrest people, he also logged onto Twitter yesterday via VPN to say that he was deactivating his account. He deactivated his account and then posted the picture on Facebook, not knowing that the VPN icon would be on his screen, on the screen. So on the screenshot, exactly on the screenshot of what he took is the VPN icon. So basically, people en masse in Nigeria saying, "Bugger you! No way! You cannot restrict my rights." If the Attorney General, who's introducing this thing that's not a law, is also going via VPN, no, you cannot tell us what to do. And so it remains to be seen what is going to happen and how they will retrospectively try to introduce a law. The president has done it before when he was a military dictator. Decree 4, he retrospectively introduced a law. I don't think he can do that as a civilian president. But the funny thing around the Donald Trump issue is that Donald Trump called Nigeria a shithole country in the past. It is quite ironic that he's now praising a country that he calls shithole.
That's such a good call out.
Yep, I got a quick. We're a few minutes over. Hold on, I got to blaze through these headlines real quick. Keeping on the political point for one article, Insider.com, and I'm just retweeting this out. Apparently something new is happening in China, but let's get our Chinese friends in for the next session in 6 hours to dive into this topic, because I really want to hear from people on the ground what's going on here. It says more and more Chinese 20-somethings are rejecting the rat race and lying flat, quote unquote, lying flat, which obviously is some kind of translation for Mandarin, after watching their friends work themselves to death. And it says the movement of the movement of the moment in China is called lying flat, which advocates for lying down instead of working hard. More Chinese youth appear to be rejecting a life of work culture of constant competition. Lying flat rejects the 996 culture, which means working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, which is the understood kind of catchphrase in of work life balance.
Jack Ma is the one who pioneered that.
Popularized it.
I can speak more to this.
And
later.
then So lying flat is a rejection of the 996 culture that encourages people to work 12-hour days, 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Only by laying down can humans become the measure of all things, argues the Lying Flat Manifesto. And we will jump it, because we don't have time today, but we will jump into that. But you can read the article now, because I just tweeted that out, and thank you to whoever tweeted that in. Back to Facebook for a second. Hold on,
And
LS.
Tyler,
LS,
wait.
hold on, sir. Zuckerberg and Bosworth, who are behind the Facebook's VR and AR initiatives, this week did a podcast that you can listen to that we just tweeted out. And Kuo, who's the leaker of all things that happen in Apple land, is now saying that Apple's AR headset will launch in the second quarter of 2020. And you can read that article. I just tweeted that out from Tech News Around the World Twitter account at TNATW. Two more quick ones. Apple also just announced, as you know, the spatial audio and lossless audio, but they're now saying it will be coming to Apple Music on Android, apparently. And that's quite an interesting development as well. But no doubt that's part of their Trojan horse tactic that they've used over the years of getting people in other non-Apple ecosystems to join the Apple ecosystem by introducing benefits like the Apple Watch or the iPod or these little accessories or upgrades that get people excited, and then they jump over to the Apple ecosystem. No doubt that's what they have in mind there. And then this is breaking news, guys. Oh, this is amazing, this one. You won't believe this. Mainstream media reporting now, El Salvador becomes first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. They just passed the law. Wow. Congratulations, wow. Mainstream media.
Thanks for keeping
we
us
are now
updated.
fully up to date. Maybe we should talk about this, guys. This apparently the president of El Salvador and the government there just passed a law making Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador, and of course that's what the first half of this 2-hour session was all about. And they were, while they were writing that article, and to them I say, good luck, mainstream media. We will see you all again in 6 hours here at Tech News Around the World. In the meantime,
good luck.
Yes, please join us in Ben's Bitcoin Basics hot wallet room. He's already got 153 in there, but I think we could easily get that up to 300, 400 in the next few minutes. So we will see you over there. Thank you to everybody again for joining us, and we'll see you in about 6 hours or tomorrow or in the Bitcoin room. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Or a live stream of another president.